Hey, this is Julia Rebecca Myron, aka The Messy Meditator, and this is the Messy Meditator podcast, where I'll be getting into the topics of mindfulness, messiness, and life. So let's get into it. So I'm very excited about today's conversation. We're going to be talking about anger. That's something that a lot of people don't like to talk about, and people try to avoid their anger. And today's guest is all about how avoiding your anger actually might be the cause of a lot of your problems. So today I'm going to be sitting down with Ashley Velvet Frost, and Ashley is a neo-emotional release practitioner. Her journey into psychosomatics involved traversing in the depths of the underworld, learning to alchemize the deepest of human and physical pains, returning as a fierce torchbearer of owning your emotions, facing your shadow, and finding the light. Ashley is direct, unabashed, and open-hearted. She is here to guide women into finding their truth, especially through meeting their anger and alchemizing it into lasting change personally and communally. Ashley, thank you so much for being here and having this conversation with me. I think it's really important to just talk about these things and normalize what's normal. I would love to hear about your journey with anger and how you came to the work that you are doing now. So you started out as a corporate girly and you started experiencing burnout and health problems, which led you on your healing journey, which led you to the work that you're doing now. So I'd love to hear about that healing journey and what that looked like.
Yeah, happy to. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I feel like every time I tell this story, I mean, it is after all a story, and sometimes we get a bit defined by our past and everything. But I feel like the main takeaways are, yes, I was very much a depressed child that I didn't understand what depression was, of course. I was, I think, picking up on the resonance from my caregivers who were also not allowing their emotions to be present. So as a child, I really felt very sensitive, and my body was also becoming very sensitive to my surroundings of getting sick in environments where people were not fully expressing. And that really translated into adulthood and into the corporate world after university. I started to notice like my soul is really dying every time that I'm stepping onto my bus to go to work on my commute. And it wasn't really a burnout that people think of when it's really high pressure and stress, where there's like heart attack coming. It's like, no, it was this slow burnout where my soul was like getting more and more resentful every day I had to go into that cage of a corporate office. So I was quite lucky. My existential crisis came at 26 years old. I was off work for months where I was just stuck in bed and I couldn't do anything because my whole body was just in shutdown. And during those moments, everything that I had been pushing down and ignoring through work and sports and dieting and partying and all of the surface level things that we use to distract ourselves, that essentially crumbled away. And I was then met with the underworld, with my shadows, with all the things that none of us want to look at because they're too shameful and they're scary and they're icky and they're not nice. No one wants to do that kind of work. But most of the time we get sent on this initiation, not really by choice. The body or our mind or circumstances set us on that path where people start asking more questions. Who am I? Why is this happening? What's going on? Can I try to find sense in all of this chaos? And that's what was happening for me as well. And yeah, what proceeded was the normal process, I'd say, of how most people come to find me with my work. Most people don't come to emotional release and anger work straight away. There's like a slippery slope of like first trying to change your diet, trying supplements, trying some fasting, trying some coaching, maybe some ice bathing, maybe some breath work, quantum healing, Reiki. It's like this step by step like ladder people follow, and I followed that down until there was really not much else left, until my body was still screaming at me, my life situation was still screaming at me, the Saturn return I had at the end of my 20s, and I was really at the bottom. I was at the lowest point of my life and stuck in the victim mode, stuck in this narrative that this was happening to me and I had no power and I was a victim of my circumstances. And I'd conveniently actually was gifted by my old business partner to go to a retreat where they taught some anger exercises as one of the afternoons. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've never even thought that yelling into a pillow was an option. And I had already done my emotional release training by this point. I had spent my whole emotional release training in 2020 crying,
Mm.
crying, crying. I mean, I had a lot of stuff to cry about, but then I never found the transition into the constructive anger that also comes from finally crying all the tears and then taking that control of like, no, you know what? Like enough, enough. So that's what happened in my journey. It was in only 3 years ago, really, that this shift happened. This moment of like, I'm done waiting for something to come and save me. And that saving comes from myself. And so it's very dramatic. Of course, maybe not everyone needs to go through this process of like picking yourself up off the floor and like bit by bit, super dramatic, like in a movie. But that is really what happened. And it's the first job I have now that I don't have imposter syndrome because I actually have lived through the experience that now people are coming to me for advice or for teaching and for helping them basically heal themselves. Like I'm not really doing a lot. I'm just kind of showing them new possibilities and giving them space for their human expression to be present, for this like masks of shame and conditioning and judgment to come off so that actually the body can do what it is always trying to do in the same way it heals wounds, in the same way it heals bones. It's always trying to come into balance. And my body, when I was in the corporate world, was trying to come into balance. I just wasn't listening to it. I
Mm.
wasn't listening to those pings, to those intuitions, to those signals. Like if you're getting frequently sick in a place, it's probably because the place is not for you. But that means being radically honest to yourself first, to take choices that are scary, that maybe need bravery and courage, and yeah, that's really what I'm here to do now. Anger is one of the gateways. It is obviously how most people find me, also yourself. But all emotions are present when doing this work. They're also intertwined in sadness, fear, joy, disgust, shame, guilt. So it's a nice big soup of emotions I'm working with. And yeah, that's where you find me today. Just spreading the message, trying to desensitize people to the emotion of anger, that it's actually really here, it's on your team, it's a messenger. And once we unpick all of the trauma that we had in the past, maybe too much, too little, shamed, conditioned, depending on what gender, depends on the country you came from, we all have a slightly different story that's attached to our emotions. And on the other side of that is some freedom.
Mm. I love that. I love, what you said about radical honesty, because I think that's so important in the healing journey. Because I feel like without that radical honesty, you can't really truly heal. Because if you can't acknowledge what's real, the uncomfortable truths, then you're just it's fluff kind of. And that could lead us down a road that I would like to talk about. But before we go there, what exactly is neo emotional release?
Yeah, neo emotional release. It's
Okay.
the modality I trained in, and I also was working for 2 years for the company before my teacher closed down his trainings for now. It's a form of psychosomatic body work, so it's a little bit of a combination of somatic experiencing. It's a combination of catharsis work, of psychology, and giving really this radical space being the room where the session happens for the human expression to come forward. So it's almost a form of embodied shadow work at times, like these exiled parts of yourself that get pushed way down. Let's say maybe one you're ashamed of that you've been carrying all this time when you would never dare to tell somebody, but it's there and it's got a message and it wants to, not necessarily that it wants to be released. Sometimes this word is a bit misleading for people, and it's not about getting rid of, it's about, can I make friends with this part? Can I integrate it back into
Mm.
my psyche to become a little bit more complete than I was before that process? And that's often a lot of, maybe people come to my page and they think it's all about screaming, it's all about yelling. And it's like, no, like emotional release and parts work and shadow work can be very subtle. It can be a little moment of, oh, whoa, oh, damn. Like that's an emotional release. That's a realization that something shifted in state than it was beforehand. And yeah, but it can look a bit wild when people come to my page. I mean, that's also part of the work. Like it's here to just gently prod, gently trigger, gently be like, hey, did you know that it is possible to yell loudly and to express yourself like a warrior? And that's maybe the first stage of it. And the second stage is actually then transitioning to this like very grounded, like samurai warrior that's not fighting with loads of strikes. He's just got that one like and back
Mm.
again. He's like centered. He knows what's right, what's wrong, and he just acts with clarity. And that's really what anger is, in my opinion. It's not about a loudness, it's not about expression, it's action. And action can
Mm.
be very subtle, can be very gentle. It doesn't have to be loud and performative as well.
Mm. I think that's, yeah, that's important because that's the association with anger is that it's like violent. And
Hmm.
sometimes it can feel like that internally. It's, I think part of why it gets labeled as bad is because it's so unpleasant to feel and so intense to feel. So, yeah, so I think that's a beautiful way to be able to work with such a powerful emotion. And I love that you differentiate between what releasing is, getting rid of versus integration. And I was going to ask you about that actually, because I think it's very easy to hear the word release and think that it's to get rid of and
Hmm.
make it go away. And that kind of gets into the spiritual bypassing stuff where it can be very easy, especially for spiritual people, to you just, I mean, we all want to feel good, right? But there can be an escapism in healing work a lot of times. And that's not really what healing work is. And so, yeah, so can you talk a little bit more about what integration might look like? I mean, you kind of touched on that with what you were talking about, but I'm thinking like in daily life, what that might look like.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
yeah.
there's a lot of things you actually said that bring up a lot of prompts like this. Sometimes people are like, yeah, so if I do this, then I'm going to feel good, right? If
Mhm.
I do these exercises, then I won't feel this unpleasant feeling anymore and I feel good. And this like trying to always have an attachment to an outcome that has to feel pleasant. And this is really the first part of shadow work, I guess, but also around emotions work is that there are no bad emotions. So there's so much deconditioning we have to do around like
Yeah.
good, bad, especially when I come to the States and I work with clients. Like there's so another layer on top than when I work with European clients of like, it's good, great, bad, fine. I'm like, I don't want to hear any of those words. They mean nothing to me. Good means
Mm.
nothing. That's so
Mm.
empty. It's so subjective. It's actually just an get out of jail easy card of like, I don't actually have to tell you how I feel. I can just say good or fine. So the emotions that we label as bad, let's say, indeed, I love that you use the word unpleasant. I also use that in sessions. Like, is this pleasant or uncomfortable?
Mhm.
Doesn't mean it's good or bad. It's just that's how your experience is of it. The the feelings of wanting to skip to the good part. It's even like a song. Like, can we skip to the good part? It's like no.
Yeah.
Like, what if actually the journey is meeting it? So in emotional release, we use a little phrase often called like, can you say you've identified, oh, I noticed that there's sadness present right now. First and foremost, most people say, I am sad, which is the ego identifying with that state. So let's first give that separation slightly. Can you notice you're feeling sadness right now? Yes. So same in meditation, like you have the observing self. This is super, super helpful to separate and unblend from the experience that's happening because your psyche, yourself, is not the same as the energy that's moving through, which is the energy in motion. So first of all, we're like, okay, I notice I'm feeling sadness right now. Cool. Can you just allow that it's there right now? There's nothing you need to do with it. That it's not bad, it's not good. It doesn't need to be shamed. We don't need to put a story about what this sadness is and it's this trauma and this thing. It's like, no, what if you just let sadness be there for a second? Let's take a breath into that. Let the body start to get connected with the experience that it's having. So for a lot of people, the breath and using sound is already a huge hurdle in sessions if you're not used to doing like like expressive breathing and expressive breathing that's actually connected to the feeling. Because I know in a lot of new age spiritual spaces, this expressive breath is used almost like a performance of like, ah, oh, yes, I see you, brother. Thank you. And it's like, it's so performative, and your
Yeah.
bullshit detector is like, no, I
Yeah.
don't feel, you don't feel me. You're just performing. And we will talk about the spiritual bypassing thing in a minute. But this is really the practice. And then the practice is, okay, like if you were not your adult self right now that has all these rules and conditions of how to be a functional adult and how to look a certain way and all these structures and beliefs around you, if you would just let yourself connect to that feeling of sadness, what would that look like? Oh, maybe your face would make an expression of sadness, your mouth would turn, maybe your body would curl over a little bit, maybe your breathing would be a bit like like this very natural process that the body knows how to do because we're born with it. Like your baby self, toddler self knows how to do this. And then at some point, conditioning, parents, school, society formed you into a nice little box that's very digestible, that doesn't bother people, that makes a good worker, that makes someone who obeys and follows things in society and then doesn't ask questions. And then people wonder why they're so sick because they're literally going against their human nature. So emotional release or emotional working with your emotions is super simple. It's actually, there's anyone who tries to sell like a complex technique is just trying to exploit you for something that you already know how to do. It's just about remembering it. So we can talk about that for a lot, but it's really like if you could radically let your human expression express what you're feeling in your body, and it takes time. Doesn't mean
Mhm.
immediately you're going to suddenly feel everything. Sometimes doing body scans, yoga nidras, journeying with your imagination to different parts of your body to notice what does it feel there? Is there a texture there? Is there a temperature there? Is there a landscape there? Like the imagination is really the entry point to a lot of this work. It's just about removing these self-imposed blocks that we've had placed there. But also, we're not here to blame our circumstances. Like you always have a choice to remove them as well.
Mhm. Yeah. And that, I mean, it sounds like I'm hearing a lot of mindfulness in that. And uh, you were using sadness as an example. For me, that's how mindfulness sort of changed my life, is learning how to allow sadness to be there. Because when I would uh, shame myself for feeling sad, then it would turn into depression. But when
Mm,
I allowed it to just be there and explored it with a friendly lens, I was like, oh, there's actually softness to it. And there's like a loving energy. I can hug myself and curl up with a blanket and nurture myself. And that was very transformative for me, and helped me learn how to come into my body a little bit more and get out of my head.
yeah,
But that can only go so far. And
yeah.
so I've seen your posts about how, you can't really meditate your way out of anger. And I agree with that, because I've definitely tried. And again, it's just such an unpleasant feeling to just, I want it to go away when I feel it. And so, like, where is the edge of where mindfulness becomes not helpful? And like, where does mindfulness end and what you do begin, I guess?
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you were already on the path of noticing when your body was wanting to get more involved in that process, like already touching yourself, laying down, like curling up. It's already giving the body signals and permissions that when it feels a feeling, you're also going to honor it and act on it as well. And that's the time point when most people who come to me who are like, I've had like many Joe Dispenza people, many Vipassana people coming to me who are like, amazing, it works when I do it, but when I stop, the issue comes back again. So maybe I just need to
Mm.
meditate 3 hours a day and then I'll feel great. It's like, no, that's I don't think that's how your life needs to look like. Why don't you just go
Yeah,
to the root cause of what's underneath the surface? So there are so many bonuses that help with mindfulness and meditation because this awareness of the observing self, which is present in parts work, it's present in active imagination, it's present in shadow work, to be able to identify these aspects of you that are not your core being, they just are parts of your psyche swimming around. So super helpful for that. Please don't stop that. But the aspect that I notice is when there's an impulse arising that the body doesn't want to stay still. So you notice the fire building and you notice that, oh, wow, it's rising and this is really uncomfortable. Maybe it even feels like magma rising up your esophagus. And in a meditation, that's almost like sadomasochism to sit there during it and be like,
totally.
no, I'm allowing it. It's here. I'm allowing it. I'm allowing it. And in reality, what does your body want to do in that moment? It doesn't need to be huge movements. It could be just squeezing of your fists and working with
Mm.
tension and release, just to let your whole body and mind know that they're not separated, that they're both a team in this process of
Mm.
emotions wanting to arise. It could be working with, oh, there's some sounds that want to come with this. Like, you're still in meditation, your eyes are still closed, but what if you would just let your jaw open a bit, relax, let a sound arise. It doesn't need to be any kind of perfect way. If that's hard, maybe sticking the tongue out, even like letting the sounds come up and out of the body. This is already huge if you've spent your whole life being afraid of making noise, being afraid of speaking. Sometimes to get to that limit, that level, is where people need support as well. That's where me and my colleagues and other people trained in this work of expression work come into play. So it's more so a case if you're listening and you're like, oh, I do recognize in some moments that it doesn't feel enough, like there's an itch and it's not fully getting scratched, then my invitation would be somatic inquiry, somatic movement, just to see like, how can I bring all of these tools together? And there isn't one, it's like meditation won't solve everything. Just doing somatic work won't solve everything. Just doing energy work won't solve it. It's really this pulling together what works for you and then how your body likes to express, and giving the responsibility back to people that no, you don't need to let some guru, even people like myself on Instagram, tell you that this is the only way that works. Like, be autonomous, find what works for you, be radical, make a new way. Like, who cares? But like, do what works for you, and not just because it's like another thing on your to-do list, because it's another thing that should be done. Like, bringing some more fun also back into this. Like, I find like the Vipassana, it's a lot of men, but a lot of boys, like, they're so serious. And they're so like, there's so much repressed joy because it's like, no, they're very
Mm.
stoic and they're like dedicated, and they're like, no, like, I'm not angry. I'm like, you're angry because you're forcing yourself to be in this box of this one experience. That's self-directed anger. It's like, really, for me, I feel like people who are fully in touch with all range of emotion, like who can express their joy without holding back, their fear, their sadness, their appreciation, their excitement, their disgust, like this fullness of the humanness is really where I'm like, yeah, thank you. Those people are enlightened because
Mhm.
they're still here on the ground. Because yes, we can vanish, and you said this also, your journey was more from like the top part, like going off into the ether, going into ceremonies, meditations, getting lost in the galaxies. And a lot of people forgetting that the body we're in does still exist on this human planet. There's still work to do here. There's still human connection that wants to happen. And a lot of the spiritual bypassing that we can talk about now is that it's the going from the heart, the throat, the third eye, crown up, and they're forgetting that actually energy goes from the base of the spine up, like from Mother Earth, from the ground upwards. The root, the sacral, the third chakra have a lot of foundation, and they're also the like really icky parts of the human psyche. That's where the shame is, the anger, power dynamics, all of things you see completely rampant in New Age spirituality fields and circles. Complete abuse of power is going on. People not owning their sexuality, not owning their money, they're exploiting each other, they're not being honest, they're using fake niceness. I feel the most unsafe around those sorts of people, despite them purporting to be all about love. Because I'm like, if you can't show me your anger and you have not got any touch, you're not in touch with any of your anger, you're dangerous as hell. I would rather be
Yes.
with the raging gym bro than these people who purport to have your best intentions at heart. And yeah, the more we can talk about that in society, like, please, people tell me they're not angry. I'm like, okay, you're terrifying.
Yep, totally. Yes, I feel the same way when people say they don't get angry. I'm like, oof, run. I'm going to run. I spent a few years living in Sedona, Arizona, which is like a spiritual mecca. And
Hmm.
that's not why I went there, but when I got there, I just leaned into the spiritual stuff because that's the language everyone spoke. And I was like, okay, well, I can kind of get down with this. But man, I saw very quickly how just I feel like the word toxic is overused and can be kind of judgmental, but it was very toxic and just it was just escapism. Maybe I'll remove toxic from it. I just saw so much escapism in the spiritual practices and
Hmm.
so much hypocrisy and so much individualism. And, instead of addressing like their anxiety, for example, they would just do another cleanse. Vegan cleanse their way out of their emotional issues, or, it was always talking to spirit, connecting with spirit. And to me, I think, okay, well, I believe we're spirits having a human experience. And if that's the case, we came here to have a human experience. And so we'll be with spirit for infinite amount of time. We're only going to be a human for a very short amount of time. So let's let ourselves experience the full spectrum of being human. And I feel like I don't want to get to the end of this ride and go, oh my God, I never got to experience what anger felt like. I never got to experience a broken heart. As agonizing as those feelings can be, I want to be able to experience as much of being human as I can while I'm here in this body as a human. And yeah, I just see so much in the spiritual community of trying to avoid the humanity.
Yeah.
And I ended up leaving that community very angry.
I was going to ask this, like, what is the main emotion present for you when you see this or saw this sort of behavior? Was it you're a bit mad about it, right?
Yeah, I had a lot of anger come up, and I kind of left with sort of silent middle fingers up, which was not maybe the best way that I would have liked to. It was in the middle of the pandemic too, and just seeing how the spiritual community handled that, it was
Mm,
so upsetting to me and really messed with my head a lot too. And so yeah, I got very angry at some otherwise good people, and I just think it's so interesting
mm.
how
Can I
lost we can get
can I
in the
ask you what's the message that the anger was giving you at that time?
not safe.
Hmm.
Um Not safe, not I was just very I don't know if this is the message from anger or just my thoughts, but just a lot of like disappointment.
That could
Dis
almost be a bit of sadness, the disappointment.
Yeah, grief. Yes, there's
Yeah,
definitely grief there. And
yeah.
I've noticed sometimes my grief will mask itself as anger
Mhm.
or
Very
yeah,
common. I
yeah.
like to call them sisters, those two emotions, that they're very intertwined, and there's nothing wrong with feeling multiple emotions at one time, but sometimes we like to get stuck in that mix of them both. And when I'm guiding people, we always just like to be like, okay, like, which one is present? We can look at both, but like, what is the grief saying? What's the message there? And it might be, I'm so gutted to have lost this community and identity of something I put so much into, and it really hurts, and I'm so sad about that. And I'm really angry because I believed in it for so long, and I went along, and it was my choice to go there, and I stayed maybe longer than I should have when I ignored the red flags. And there's this like sense of like frustration around that and the anger that wants to come through with it. And sometimes it's easier than of like when you look at the message, it's easy to look at what you don't like about it. Like it didn't feel safe and it wasn't what I wanted. It's like, okay, what can it tell you that you do want then from a space?
Mm.
This is the transition I love to bring people into the alchemy. It's like, okay, we can be a victim. It happened. They didn't make me feel safe. This didn't happen. I'm sad that it didn't. And it's again like slightly the perspective on the external force still having a bit of power over your perspective of that experience. So I'm curious, like, what did it show you that you do want? What's important for you in a group or community?
Oh, yeah, being grounded in reality.
Mm-hmm.
Kindness. Well, it was actually a very kind community, but so maybe that's the good that I took from it too was kindness, compassion, and community in it was a very community oriented community, but it was also very individualistic when it came to certain things. And so I want to be with people who are willing to show up for others in
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable ways, who can
Mm-hmm.
sit with you when you're sick or angry or crying or dying, and who will help the homeless or who want to help others in a real way, not in a healing love and light kind of way.
Mm-hmm. So if you could say that in one direct sentence, what would that be? Just for refinement, because anger is
Yes.
clarity. It really
Yeah.
helps.
Oh God. Okay.
I want to be with people who,
Oh gosh. Who care about others?
does it feel resonant when you say that?
Yeah, I feel like there's something else that I can't, it's like on the tip of my brain and I can't get it.
Maybe let your body say it.
Hmm.
Maybe just let the words flow if you connect to that slightly healthier. It's like, I want to be with people who, what?
Oh God. I don't
Who
know if
give a,
I can
sorry to
access.
swear, but like, who give a fuck about others?
Oh
Like,
no.
oh,
Swear all you want. That's
yeah, like
welcome.
I want to be like that's why sometimes this like passion can be there. It's like I want to be around people who want to help others. I want to be around people who care about their community, who would sit with me and listen to me when I'm feeling an emotion and not separate myself from them and not exile me. This is, you can still feel there's like anger charge there, but this is like the healthy anger because it's this drive, this like that's what I want. And I'm clear about what I want. And now it's so easy to set boundaries, to say no to the places that don't do that for me and to say yes to the places that do give that for me. But sometimes we don't even know where to set the boundary because we haven't got that clarity yet inside of ourselves of like, what's fucking important? What am I
Mm.
fighting for? What kind of space would I fight for? If I had a community and I really believed in it, what is driving me with that? So thank you for letting me do a little minor
Yeah.
demo on
No.
you to like show the process of like sometimes how our mind is just running and actually the body has the answer and it just is
Yeah.
about connecting to the feeling and just letting yourself get a little bit impassioned sometimes. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's an exercise I do a lot at some of the trainings and retreats. It's like someone stands in the center and they have to really use their anger of like, I want this and I want this and I want these kind of friendships and I want this kind of business and I want this. And it's like, everyone's like, yeah, yeah, more, more. And it's like not coming from this victim place. It's just like, no, like I know I want this and I choose this and I'm going to go after this. I
Mm.
love that your animal is also getting in the space now. It's like something's happening, some
Yeah.
energy is happening.
I heard some rustling over there, but yeah.
The animals are the best space holders. They always know when the energy is picking up.
Yeah, I know sometimes when she's picking up on something, I look at her and I'm like, is there something going on with me that I need to know? Because, if she is especially tender with me one day or something, I'm like, oh, does she know something that's going on that I don't?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I love all of that. It's so powerful. And
Thank you for being vulnerable, also for showing yourself.
thank you for saying that because that's something I wanted to talk about is how vulnerable this kind of work is. I mean, healing work in general, again, like with the radical honesty, it's very vulnerable. And with some of the videos that I've seen where people are like, like, oh my God, I see that. And I'm like, that is so vulnerable. Oh my God. But I also believe that vulnerability is a superpower, but seems like a lot of what you're doing is an exercise in vulnerability. Would you agree?
Hmm. Yeah, it'd be super curious inquiry for like what part of it feels a lot or scary or fearful of like the idea of maybe also having videos of yourself or things like this. Like it's a beautiful process for most people. And for the people in my videos, I always ask consent. And when they come to my trainings and things, they know they're going to get filmed. They know that before I post a reel that I've sent them it to check, are you okay with this being published? And it is indeed a very for a lot of people, they're like, oh wow, this was a good process of me of like meeting my shame or my inner critic that's like, you look weird or ugly or bad. So for everyone in the videos, it's also a start of like, wow, there's an inquiry here. And yeah, like it's such a shame that in society, like the raw expression of human emotions is something that's become vulnerable. Like
Yeah, that's
yeah,
so true.
how for me it makes me feel a little bit sad that people still get. I mean, the first reel I had that went super viral was like just over a year ago now. That was of just some pictures of not even videos, like women expressing anger at my retreat, and it was like a montage of photos. And I received death threats, people critiquing like, yeah, you have nothing to be angry about. This is just privileged white women. And for
Mm,
me, it like made me sad, but also made me feel very mad of like, oh, that's like how has it become something that is like vilified of just women and any human having the space to express their pain, their joy, their sadness, their fear, and that's just not allowed anymore. And it makes me really sad. And I use that sadness to drive my motivation of the work and to show example after example, different types of people, men, women, different ages, different nationalities, that actually emotions are super welcome.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so here's to more vulnerability. But if you'd asked me like
Right.
5 years ago that I was doing this job and doing anger releases online and in events and thrusting into pillows and humping pillows in front of hundreds of people, I'd be like, are you okay? Like, what the fuck happened? Like, you're one of those weird hippie people now, is what my past self probably would have said to this. And I would just give her
Yeah.
a hug and be like, you're allowed to also show that you're not perfect sometimes. You're allowed
Yeah.
to be sad. It's okay. You're not going to be rejected if you show people that you're sad as well.
Mm. I think it's interesting that some of the criticisms that you received was about being too privileged to have anything to be upset about. And I definitely have my own issues with privilege that I wrestle with, both good and bad, in myself and in others. But I also get pissed off. Well, in the States, pissed has a different meaning than in Europe, but it does make me angry when someone who has a lot of privilege talks about, mental illness or getting depressed, and people are like, what do you have to be depressed about? As if that makes someone immune to the human experience, because oftentimes privilege can make you more depressed. I think that's another stigma I would love to see go away, is just letting everyone just be human, no matter where we are in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean there's a lot to unpick with this. There is so much of the healing industry that needs to be decolonized from this egocentric, individualistic approach that one person has all the knowledge and everyone else is like looking up to them, that this taking of different concepts and appropriating them, this concept around like, yeah, well, if you just manifest and you just do your affirmations, you can manifest your way out of oppression. Like I literally just posted a reel about this yesterday, that there's a lot of coaches that just focus on like success, get your 10-figure month, get your 100K this, blah. And it's like, cool, that works for you, but you're not acknowledging that there are systems in place that support you. Even for us as white women, there are systems and hurdles
Mhm.
that we do not have to face, that other people have to think about, have to look at, and that some methods don't work in that way without
Yeah.
actually looking at like the systems that put people in that place in the first place. And not to be defined by the system, but you need to have both sides consciously spoken about to be able to find your power and how to navigate your way around that. And yeah, for myself, like, of course, there's critique. If you see, at that time, it was a retreat of white women. It was the first one I did. Of course, people who are like me are going to come because they see themselves in myself. And
Mhm.
what was helpful from that retreat was then that I was able to have a bigger retreat next time. I was able to give sponsored spaces. I was able to then do my online training, which means that it's $40 a month, and there's people can join that for free if they really don't have the money to really have the different levels of access available. So of course, there's going to be the higher tier, but having also the free videos, the free resources available. That also, to be honest, 5 years ago, that was me. Like I was broke as hell 5 years ago, and I didn't have any means to pay to go to the kind of retreats I do now. And it's like
Mhm.
those retreats I do now give me the resources to be able to cover all of the things I can give away for free. So it's this like perspective. But to be honest, the thing that just really annoyed me is indeed like, just because you're white doesn't mean that abuse, rape, sexism, power imbalances, all of these rights are not being like stripped away by so many women. And I mean, in your country, even more so in the last couple of months, even.
Yeah.
So maybe people wouldn't have that kind of response now because it's like lots shifted in America, and then people can see like, yeah, all these rights and these bills just got taken away, and people are understanding more like, oh, I think that there is some stuff to be angry about. And there's so many books written about female feminine rage, and that feminine rage is often the precursor to big shifts in society.
Mm.
And looking back on history, reading about those sorts of events, it normally comes from women first getting fucking angry about stuff, and
Mm.
then change comes. And then maybe the change is reversed again by certain presidents, but yeah, that's where
Yeah.
we're at. And
Yeah. Well, and I was going to bring that up because I was going to say, with what's going on here in the States, people are going to need your work over the next few years, or probably, maybe, hopefully not, but maybe more than 4 years.
Yeah. It's going to be of
Because
the
there's,
utmost imperative to have tools to navigate the waves of triggers that will come of all emotions in our way into our space, our personal spaces, that we need to find ways to regulate the stress, and not just to make it go away, but to understand, like, what can I deal with right now? What can I work through? What do I need to do to also regulate my nervous system? Like, this work is not just about releasing. It's like regulate, release, reprogram, go again, like sleep and then go again. Like,
mm,
finding this dance between, like, when is it needed to go into intensity and to be angry and to feel it. And sometimes our nervous system, we're so overloaded with all the news and all the intense. It's like, yeah, okay, find ways to also just be a human being and come into the moment. And if it's just the moment when the sun hits your face a few times a day, or that breath of air that you get, like, those moments will keep you sane and keep you in this human experience without getting lost in sometimes the mind and the stories that are bubbling up like crazy.
yeah.
And conveniently, I'm coming to the US for May and June this year, so there's a reason I'm coming.
I love that. That was another thing I was going to ask, was if you would be coming to the States, where will you be going, or will you be going multiple
I
places?
will be for most of May in Austin, Texas,
Okay.
giving sessions, training some people in emotional release there for body work. I will be 3 weeks in Los Angeles in June. I will be hosting a 3-day anger alchemy seminar immersion. I think seminar, maybe people think it's too much like school. It's an immersion. It's an experience to, first of all, tap into anger and what that means. So you can be a beginner, but also if you're somebody who's working already holding space, then you will learn a lot of tools there by default of doing them that you can then bring into your own work as well. So I'm doing that in LA in the middle of June, and also in New York at the end of June as well.
Nice. I
So
love
I'm
that.
giving sessions, giving seminars. By the time this comes out, people can see it on my website. It will all be there as well. So
Awesome. Well,
yeah.
that's a great way to sort of tie this up. And so how can people find you and get a hold of you? And is there anything else that you want to share that you're working on?
Yeah, there's, like I said, I got a lot of products, but if you want to find me at ashleyvelvetfrost.com, and also on Instagram, that's my tag. I have the Academy of Anger, which is the membership platform I have. So we've got around 3 to 5 calls happening a week of emotional release, breath work, sharing, calls, shadow work, anger classes, embodiment. It's like ridiculous, all the classes going on there. So if it's like, I can't do a session right now, but I'd love to try this out, it's the price of like one pizza a month. So
Mm.
very welcome there. If you want to dive deeper into an online course, I have the Anger Alchemy online course. That's a 10-week program you can follow. And in general, just drop me a message if there's questions. I'm always on my DMs, happy to answer. And yeah, if you feel like coming to the US, you can find the links on my website for booking sessions as well.
And I love your Instagram page so much. Like every
Thank
single post of
you.
yours, I'm like, oh, it's so good. It's so good. I'm just going to ask real fast, how is making content around this for you? Because making content is its own job sometimes. And sometimes I feel just like, oh God, what do I even say?
hmm
Does it come pretty naturally to you?
I went through a big process around 3 years ago when I started focusing on anger, that I was just gathering information. All the
Mm,
books that I read, I was getting quotes out of them. I was piecing together in my mind, like, what do I believe about this? What's my opinions? And doing this started actually through coming on a podcast. Like, I got invited
mm,
to go speak on a podcast after showing the anger exercises at the first emotional release retreat. Like, David just let me like do a demo, and like people did it, and we had anger release, and we were like, something just happened here. We're not sure what, something big just opened. And then one of the participants was like, can you come on my podcast, please? Talk about anger. And I was like, yeah. And I said to David, I was like, I don't have a degree in anger. Like, there's not even you can't even do that. What do I talk about? And he was like, Ashley, you're perfectly qualified to talk about emotions because you're a human being. That's all you
mm,
need. You have experience emotions.
yeah.
That's really how it started. And then more podcasts that I went on and more clients I worked with, and I started noticing patterns and struggles and in my own journey. So it was just really this joy of gathering and sharing the lived experiences I've been through as well. And I note down things a lot. I have
Yeah.
a big database. I've fed a ChatGPT with all of my knowledge of like, this is everything I learn, every new client thing. It's like really learning a lot about that. And we can talk about AI maybe on another episode. Not
Yeah.
everyone's for it, but it helps me get clarity,
Yeah.
bringing together a
Love
lot of the
ChatGPT.
jumbles of my thoughts. And yeah, and just a bit of healthy masculine structure of
Mm,
the different posts, learn how to edit
yeah.
some videos. And that was also fun to use the motivation into learning new skills. And I got support along the way. Like we were in a village. Remember, two of my
Yes.
best friends also dropped in and helped, and so we don't have to do it by ourselves as well. It's sometimes the
Yeah.
entrepreneur journey and pitfall. Like
Yes.
it's a story again. Oh, I'm all by myself and it's so hard. It's like, no, you have a choice. Like it doesn't have to be hard.
Mm. Oh my God. Yeah, that's a whole other topic. But yes, yes, yes.
That can be for part two. The
Yes.
how pressure and stress leads us to feeling anger we didn't even know was there.
Mm. Oh God, yeah. And yeah. Part two, part three. Yeah. There's lots of thoughts coming up from that. But yeah, thank you so much for this conversation. I loved it. I love what you're doing. Ashley Velvet Frost, thank you.
Thank you.
And I just look forward to everything that you're doing.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. I'm looking forward to listen back.